Have you ever wondered what actually happens inside the mind of someone who spent months pushing you away the very moment they realize you're finally gone? Picture this for a second. It's late at night. The apartment is quiet. Too quiet. They reach for their phone out of habit. The same habit they built during all those months with you, and their thumb hovers over your name. But this time, something is different. This time, there's no message from you waiting. No missed call. No soft good night sitting at the top of the screen. And in that single unremarkable moment, something inside them cracks open. Something they've been running from their entire life. This is the moment nobody talks about. The moment the avoidant partner sits in the aftermath of their own escape and realizes the silence they thought they wanted feels nothing like freedom. It feels like drowning in slow motion. And if you're watching this right now, if you're the one who finally stopped chasing, finally stopped explaining yourself, finally stopped waiting by the phone, I need you to understand something. The person who pushed you away is not okay. They may look okay. They may post like they're okay. They may even tell their friends they're relieved. But underneath all of that, a quiet storm is building. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why they will come back. Not because they might, not because there's a chance, but because the psychology of avoidant attachment almost guarantees it. Here's the truth most people never learn about avoidance. Their entire nervous system is built around one core belief, a belief so deeply buried they don't even know it's running the show. That belief sounds something like this. If I let someone get too close, I will lose myself. If I need them, they will hurt me. If I feel too much, I won't survive it. So they build walls. They call it independence. They call it being logical. They call it not wanting drama. But it's not any of those things. It's a survival strategy their body learned before they could even speak. And this strategy works. It works beautifully. Right up until the moment the person they pushed away actually leaves. Because here's what nobody prepared them for. The walls that protect them from love also protect them from feeling how much they truly loved you. Their emotional system is like a pressure cooker with the lid welded shut. While you were still there, still reaching, still hoping, they could keep the lid down. Your presence gave them something to push against. Something to feel safely distant from. But the second you stop reaching, the second the pressure has nowhere to go but inward, everything they've been avoiding for years starts to rise. Slowly at first, then all at once. And this is the part that will blow your mind. The avoidant doesn't feel the loss immediately. That's the trick their psychology plays on them. In the first few days, sometimes even the first few weeks, they genuinely feel relief. They feel light. They feel like they can breathe again. They tell themselves they made the right choice. They throw themselves into work, into the gym, into distractions, into anyone or anything that keeps them from being alone with themselves. And this is why so many people who leave an avoidant partner assume it's over, assume they don't care, assume they've already moved on. But what you're watching is not indifference. What you're watching is a delayed emotional reaction. And that delay is the single most misunderstood thing about avoidant attachment. Because when the delay ends, and it always ends, the emotional wave that hits them is not proportional to the time that passed. It's proportional to the years of feelings they never allowed themselves to feel. Every soft moment they dismissed. Every I love you they couldn't say back. Every time you reached for their hand and they pulled away without knowing why. All of it comes back, all at once. And there is no wall high enough to stop it. So while you're sitting there tonight wondering if they ever cared, wondering if they're thinking about you, wondering if you meant anything at all, I want you to sit with this. The silence you're feeling right now, the ache in your chest, the way your heart drops every time your phone lights up hoping it's them. That silence is doing something to them too, something they can't control, something they can't outrun, something their carefully built emotional defenses were never designed to handle. And in the next stretch of this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what is happening inside them right now. The internal collapse they can't admit to anyone. The memories that are quietly ambushing them at the worst possible moments. The reason they will pick up their phone one night, hands shaking, and finally say the words they should have said months ago. Because once you understand the machinery underneath avoidant attachment, you stop hoping they'll come back. You start knowing they will. What if the person who couldn't say "I love you" to your face is the same person who whispers it into an empty room the moment you're no longer there to hear it? Sit with that for a second. Because this is the strange, painful, almost cruel paradox at the heart of avoidant attachment. The love was real. It was always real. But the avoidant nervous system is wired in such a way that the presence of the person they love actually blocks their ability to feel that love fully. And the absence, the very thing they thought they wanted, is the only environment where their heart is finally allowed to speak. You have to understand something fundamental about how avoidants process emotion. Most people feel their emotions in real time. Something happens, they feel it, they express it, they move through it, but an avoidant doesn't work that way. Their emotional processing is delayed, sometimes by days, sometimes by weeks, sometimes by months. It's not that they don't feel. It's that their nervous system was trained very early in life to shut down feelings the moment they become too intense. It's a defense mechanism so automatic they don't even know it's happening. To them, it just feels like being calm, being logical, being fine. But underneath that calm surface, feelings are being stored, buried, compressed, and every one of them has a delivery date. It just isn't today. This is why, when you were with them, the moments that felt the most meaningful to you often felt strangely flat to them. You remember the night you told them you loved them for the first time and they smiled, kissed your forehead, and changed the subject. You remember the vacation where you looked at them across the table and felt your whole chest fill up with something huge, and they just kept eating like nothing was happening. You remember all those little emotional peaks where you felt everything and they seemed to feel almost nothing. And you probably spent months, maybe years, wondering if something was wrong with you, wondering if you loved them more than they loved you, wondering if you were the only one who felt anything at all. Here is what was actually happening. In those exact moments, their nervous system was flooding. The intimacy was too much, too fast, too close, and instead of leaning in, their body did what it always does. It reached for the emergency shut-off valve. Their heart rate slowed, their emotions numbed. Their attention drifted to something safer, not because they didn't love you, but because loving you, really letting themselves love you, felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with no railing. And their entire life had been built around never standing that close to the edge. But now you're gone. The cliff isn't there anymore. There's no one to be intimate with, no one to overwhelm them, no one to trigger the shut-off valve. And this is where the strangest, most heartbreaking thing about avoidance psychology begins to unfold. Because with the pressure gone, all those stored, compressed, buried feelings start to defrost, slowly, quietly, without warning. They'll be walking through the grocery store and pass the aisle with your favorite snack, and suddenly, out of nowhere, they'll feel a wave of tenderness so sharp it stops them in the middle of the floor. They didn't feel that when you were with them. They couldn't. Their system wouldn't let them. But now, in the safety of your absence, the feeling finally has permission to surface. This is why avoidants often experience something researchers call post-relationship idealization. When you were around, they focused on your flaws. The way you chewed too loudly, the way you texted too much, the way you needed things they didn't want to give, because focusing on your flaws was another way to keep the emotional pressure low. But the moment you leave, their brain flips. Suddenly, they're not remembering your flaws. They're remembering the way you laughed at their bad jokes, The way you knew exactly how they took their coffee. The way you looked at them like they were the only person in the room. And each of these memories hits them with the full emotional weight they refuse to feel in the moment. And here's the twist that will change how you see everything. This delayed emotional flood is not a choice. It's not something they can decide to feel or not feel. It's biology. It's neurology. It's the very structure of an attachment system that was built to survive, not to love. Which means that somewhere out there right now, the person who couldn't tell you how they felt is starting to feel it all. Every dismissed moment. Every rejected reach. Every love they couldn't return in the second you needed them to. It's coming for them, and it's coming with interest. So the next time you find yourself doubting whether what you had was real, whether they ever truly cared, whether you imagined the connection, I want you to remember this. Their inability to show love in real time was never proof that the love didn't exist. It was proof of how terrified they were of the very love they couldn't stop feeling. And now, in the quiet aftermath of your absence, that love is finally catching up to them. It's finding them in places they can't hide. It's speaking in a voice they can't silence. And it's about to change everything they thought they knew about themselves. If you could see inside their mind right now, at this exact moment, what stage of the collapse do you think you'd find them in? Because, make no mistake, there is a stage, there is a pattern, there is a hidden timeline that almost every avoidant moves through after the person they pushed away actually leaves. And once you understand this timeline, once you can see it clearly, something powerful happens inside of you. You stop refreshing your phone. You stop analyzing every silence. You stop torturing yourself with the question, why haven't they reached out yet? Because you realize they're not silent because they don't care. They're silent because they're moving through a psychological process that has to unfold in a specific order, and you cannot rush it, but you can absolutely count on it. The first stage begins within hours of the breakup, and this is the stage that fools everyone. In the first few days, the avoidant experiences something that looks almost like euphoria. The tension is gone. The pressure to communicate, to be present, to meet emotional needs, all of it lifts. They feel lighter. They feel free. They tell themselves they made the right choice. They might even go out with friends, laugh a little too loud, post a little too much. And if you're watching from the outside, this is the stage that destroys you. Because it looks like they don't care. It looks like you are nothing. It looks like they've already moved on. But what you're actually witnessing is not moving on. What you're witnessing is the nervous system exhaling for the first time in months. This isn't joy, it's decompression. And decompression always ends. The second stage begins somewhere between week 2 and week 4. This is the numbness phase. The initial relief fades, but the emotions haven't caught up yet. So they exist in a kind of emotional flatline. They go through the motions. Work, gym, sleep, repeat. They might date. They might not. But whatever they do, they feel a strange emptiness underneath it, and they can't quite name it. They tell themselves they just need more time alone. They tell themselves they're focusing on themselves. They tell themselves this is what growth feels like. But underneath the surface, something is shifting. The wall they built to keep your absence out is starting to develop hairline cracks. They don't see the cracks yet, but their body does. The third stage is the crack itself. It usually arrives without warning, somewhere between week 4 and week 8. It's not a big dramatic moment. It's small, almost embarrassingly small. They'll hear a song in a coffee shop and suddenly not be able to breathe. They'll see a couple arguing in a parking lot and feel a wave of grief so sharp it makes no sense. They'll wake up at 3 in the morning from a dream they can't remember and lie there staring at the ceiling with a hollow ache in their chest. This is the moment their defenses take their first real hit. And they will do everything they can to explain it away. They'll tell themselves they're just tired, they're just stressed, They just need a distraction. But the crack is there now, and once a wall cracks, water always finds it. The fourth stage is the flood. This is where the real work begins. Memories they thought they'd forgotten start ambushing them at random moments. The way you tilted your head when you were confused. The specific sound of your laugh. A phrase you used to say. And every memory brings with it the emotion they refused to feel at the time. Except now, without you there to trigger their shut-off valve, they have no defense. The feelings hit them raw. They start comparing every new person they meet to you and finding them lacking. They start noticing how quiet their apartment is. They start realizing that the freedom they craved feels a lot more like loneliness than they expected. The fifth stage is the panic. This is where their conscious mind finally catches up to what their body has been telling them for weeks. They realize they made a mistake. They realize they might have lost you for real. They realize you're not sitting by the phone anymore. And suddenly the same avoidant who couldn't reach out to save their life starts feeling something they've spent their entire adulthood avoiding. Urgency. Their heart starts racing when they think about you being with someone else. They start checking your social media, but from a burner account or from a friend's phone because they're too afraid to leave a trace. They rehearse messages. They're too scared to send. They start bargaining with themselves. Maybe just one text, maybe just to check in, maybe just to say hi. And this is where you need to understand something crucial. The reason they haven't reached out yet is not because they don't want to. It's because they haven't finished walking through the timeline. Some avoidants move through these stages in weeks, others take months. A few take a year or more. But the stages are non-negotiable. Their nervous system will drag them through every single one, whether they cooperate or not. And somewhere along the way, usually in the middle of the panic phase, they will do the one thing they swore they would never do. They will reach for their phone with shaking hands, and they will finally break the silence. What if I told you that the moment your avoidant finally breaks won't come from a big dramatic event, but from something so small, so ordinary, so quietly devastating that it slips past every defense they've ever built? Because this is where the psychology gets fascinating. Avoidants are masters at preparing for the obvious threats. They know how to guard against big emotional conversations. They know how to shut down when someone pushes them for commitment. They know how to disappear when things get too intense. But there is one category of experience their defenses cannot touch, and it's the one they never see coming. These are called somatic triggers. They live in the body, not the mind, and they operate underneath the level of conscious awareness, which means the avoidant cannot logic their way out of them, cannot rationalize them away, cannot pretend they didn't happen. When a somatic trigger fires, the emotion is already in their chest before their thinking brain even knows what's going on. And this is the mechanism that finally forces them to face what they lost. The most powerful somatic trigger is the return to routine. When you were with them, your presence was woven into the smallest fabric of their day, the specific way they drank their morning coffee because you always made it a certain way, the side of the bed they slept on because you claimed the other side first, the songs on their playlist you added, the restaurants you introduced them to, the phrases they picked up from you without realizing. For weeks after the breakup, these routines feel invisible. They just move through their day on autopilot. But then one Tuesday morning, they'll pour their coffee, sit down at the counter, and feel a wave of loneliness they can't explain. Because their body just noticed something. Their mind was too busy to see. You're not there, and the ritual they built with you has become a ghost of you. The second major trigger is what happens in the space between activities. Avoidants are notorious for staying busy. Work, gym, hobbies, friends, side projects, anything to keep the mind occupied. And in the early stages of the breakup, this works. Being busy keeps the emotional flood at bay. But no one can be busy every second of every day. And eventually there comes a moment. Maybe it's after a long weekend, Maybe it's on a random Sunday evening when the plans fell through. Maybe it's when they finish a big project and don't know what to do next. In that unstructured space, in that pause where they finally have nothing to distract them, the feelings they've been suppressing come rushing in. And they realize with a sinking feeling that they don't want to call any of their friends. They don't want to text any of the people they've been dating. They want you. And the specificity of that wanting terrifies them. The third trigger is watching you thrive without them. And here I need you to pay very close attention, because this is the trigger most people accidentally sabotage by trying to force it. Avoidants have an incredibly sensitive radar for effort. If you post something that even looks like it was designed to be seen by them, their defenses go right back up. But when you genuinely, authentically start rebuilding your life, when you start looking better, feeling better, laughing more, showing up in your own life with an energy they haven't seen in months, that is when their internal narrative starts to collapse. Because the story they told themselves to justify the breakup was that you were the problem, that you needed too much, that you were too emotional, that you weren't right for them. But if you're glowing without them, if you're clearly moving on with your life, that story doesn't hold anymore. And now they have to face a much scarier question. What if I was the problem? What if I just lost the best thing that ever happened to me? The fourth trigger is intimacy failure with someone new. Avoidants often try to prove to themselves that they're fine by getting involved with someone else. It's a defense mechanism called deactivation through substitution. They tell themselves this new person is easier, less intense, less demanding, and for a few weeks it works. But then something happens. They go on a date and the person laughs at their joke, and it doesn't hit the same way yours did. They sleep with someone new, and instead of feeling closer, they feel emptier. They try to open up and realize they don't want to open up to this person at all. In that moment, their brain does something automatic. It reaches for the last time they felt safe, wanted, understood, and it lands squarely on you. The fifth and most powerful trigger is silence itself. Not just your silence, their own. Because for the entire duration of your relationship, they used your presence as a background hum. Even when they were withdrawing, even when they were pulling away, they knew you were there. Your existence was a psychological safety net they didn't even know they were leaning on. But now that net is gone. And in the quiet of their own life with no one reaching for them, no one texting good morning, no one caring where they are on a Friday night, they come face to face with a truth they've been avoiding for years. They don't actually want to be alone. They just wanted to feel safe. And you are the only person who ever made them feel both. Each of these triggers is a small psychological hammer. On their own, they crack the wall. Together, they break it. And once the wall is broken, there is only one thing left for them to do. Have you ever wondered why an avoidant can look you in the eyes, tell you they don't feel anything anymore, walk out the door with a straight face, and then completely fall apart 6 months later, begging for another chance? What you're witnessing when that happens is not manipulation. It's not a change of heart. It's the collapse of one of the most sophisticated psychological defense mechanisms the human mind has ever developed. It's called deactivation. And understanding it is going to change the way you see every avoidant you've ever known. Deactivation is the internal process by which an avoidant turns off their attachment needs. Every human being is born with an attachment system. It's the biological drive that makes us seek closeness, comfort, connection. For most people, this system runs in the background, quietly guiding their behavior. But for avoidants, this system got wounded early. Somewhere in their formative years, reaching for connection resulted in pain, rejection, or absence. So their brilliant, adaptive, protective mind learned a trick. It learned how to press pause on the entire attachment system, to numb the need before it can rise, to disconnect from the desire for closeness before it can become a vulnerability. And this trick works for years, sometimes for decades. But here is what nobody tells you about deactivation. It is enormously expensive. Every act of shutting down a feeling requires energy. Every dismissed longing has to be dismissed again the next time it surfaces. Every warm moment that gets pushed away has to be pushed away over and over. And the human nervous system, no matter how well trained, can only maintain this level of suppression for so long. Deactivation is like holding a beach ball underwater. You can do it. You can even do it for a long time. But your arms will eventually tire, and the moment they do, the ball explodes to the surface with a force proportional to how deep you were holding it. During the relationship, your avoidant partner was holding a lot of beach balls underwater. The tender feelings when you cuddled on the couch. The vulnerable urge to tell you they were scared. The desire to depend on you. The impulse to say, please don't leave. All of it submerged. All of it held down with muscles they'd been developing since childhood. And your presence, ironically, made the holding easier. Because your presence gave them a reason to hold. There was something to protect against. Something to keep themselves safe from. The suppression had a purpose. But the moment you leave, the purpose disappears. The threat is gone. And the deactivating strategy, without something to deactivate against, starts to slip. Slowly at first. They don't notice it. They just feel a little more tired than usual, a little more restless, a little more prone to strange, unexplained moods. What they don't realize is that their nervous system, freed from the daily task of shutting down feelings for you specifically, is starting to relax. And a relaxed nervous system is a nervous system that begins to feel. This is where the collapse begins. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in waves. The first wave is often a strange, unfamiliar softness. They'll be sitting somewhere neutral, and out of nowhere, they'll feel a wave of affection for you so intense it disorients them. They won't understand where it came from. They didn't feel it when you were together. Why is it here now? They'll try to shake it off. They'll try to distract themselves. And for a while, it will work. But the waves keep coming. And each one is bigger than the last. The second sign of collapse is the return of longing. Longing is the emotion an avoidant is most terrified of, because longing implies dependency. Longing implies need. Longing implies that they cannot control their own emotional state through willpower alone. And avoidants have built their entire identity around the belief that they don't need anyone. So when longing shows up, when they find themselves lying awake at night, wanting you specifically, wanting your voice, wanting your hand on theirs, they experience it as an existential threat. Their whole self-concept is being challenged, and they cannot suppress it the way they used to. The third sign of collapse is the collapse of the story. Every avoidant tells themselves a story to justify their withdrawal. It wasn't right. We weren't compatible. They needed too much. I'm just better on my own. This story is the operating system of their emotional defense. It's what keeps the deactivation running. But as the feelings surface, the story starts to sound thin, even to them. They'll be replaying an argument in their head and suddenly realize that you weren't asking for too much. You are asking for the bare minimum. They'll remember something they said to you and cringe. They'll catch themselves defending you in their own mind against the version of you they used to complain about. And once the story collapses, the deactivation has nothing left to hold on to. The fourth and final sign is the arrival of what psychologists call attachment activation. This is the moment their entire attachment system, dormant for years, wakes up with a vengeance. And here is the cruel irony. Once activated, an avoidance attachment system is not moderate. It's not calm. It's not measured. It's frantic, because it has decades of unmet needs pushing to the surface all at once. This is why avoidants who come back often come back intensely. They don't casually reach out, they ambush you, they confess, they apologize, they beg. Because for the first time in their adult life, they are feeling the full weight of their attachment needs. And they are terrified that they've lost the one person their nervous system trusted enough to actually feel them with. What do you think is louder inside their mind right now? The last words you said to them, or the sound of the silence you've kept ever since? Because here is one of the most misunderstood truths in all of attachment psychology. Your silence is not passive. It is not empty. It is not absence. Your silence is one of the loudest, most psychologically active forces you can introduce into an avoidance inner world. And it is doing something to them right now that no argument, no plea, no explanation, no grand gesture could ever accomplish. It is rewriting the entire story they told themselves about you. To understand why this is so powerful, you have to understand something strange about how avoidants build their memories. During the relationship, they were emotionally guarded. Their nervous system was constantly filtering the experience through a defensive lens, which means the memories they formed while you were together were incomplete. They recorded the events. They recorded the conflicts. They recorded the moments they felt trapped or overwhelmed. But the tender moments, the soft ones, the ones that would have required them to lower their guard to fully absorb, those got stored in a compressed format, half processed, half felt, sitting on a shelf inside them waiting to be opened. And silence is the key that opens those files. When you go quiet, when you stop pursuing, stop explaining, stop reaching, something remarkable happens inside their psychology. Their mind, no longer engaged in the daily task of defending against your presence, starts to wander. And when a mind wanders without a defensive agenda, it drifts toward the past. It starts opening those compressed memory files. And this time, without the guard up, the emotional content of those memories comes through in full. That night you danced in the kitchen. That morning they woke up and you were watching them sleep. That road trip where you sang along to a bad song together. These memories don't just replay. They finally, for the first time, get felt. This is what psychologists sometimes describe as the reconstruction phase. In your absence, the avoidant begins to reconstruct the relationship from the inside out. But here is the crucial part. They're not reconstructing it as it was. They're reconstructing it as it truly felt, underneath all their defenses. And the version they're building now is far more emotionally charged than anything they experienced in real time. In real time, they saw your flaws in high definition and your love in low resolution. In reconstruction, the resolution flips. Suddenly, your love is in high definition. Suddenly, the small things you did are massive. Suddenly, the way you looked at them across a dinner table becomes something they can feel in their chest 6 months later. But there is another deeper layer to what your silence is doing. It's forcing them to confront a version of themselves they've been running from. Because your silence removes their favorite psychological escape route. When you were pursuing them, they could always locate the problem in you. You were too needy. You were too emotional. You were too much. Every reach you made gave them a fresh reason to feel justified in their withdrawal. But when you stop reaching, when the pursuit ends, they suddenly have nowhere to project. The mirror turns around, and for the first time, they have to look at themselves, their own choices, their own coldness, their own inability to give you what you needed. And this is the moment that changes everything. Because avoidants, contrary to what most people think, are not actually comfortable with themselves. Their independence is not confidence, it's protection. And when the protection is stripped away by the quiet mirror of your absence, what they see underneath is often deeply uncomfortable. They see the pattern. They see how many people they've done this to. They see the possibility that they may be the common denominator in every relationship that failed. And this realization, this quiet gut punch of self-awareness, is one of the most powerful psychological experiences an avoidant can have. There's also something else happening beneath the surface, and it's called the development of emotional permanence. Object permanence is a concept in child psychology. It's the understanding that things continue to exist even when you can't see them. Most people develop it in infancy. But emotional permanence is different. It's the ability to feel someone's love for you even when they're not physically present. And avoidants often struggle with this deeply. When you're with them, They feel your love. When you're not, it disappears. It's part of why they can go days without texting and not think it's a problem. In their internal world, out of sight really does mean out of mind. But something extraordinary happens when the person they took for granted goes truly silent for the first time. Their brain, which used to rely on your reaching out to remind them you existed emotionally, now has to hold the memory of you all on its own. And in that holding, in that private, unassisted work of remembering, they finally develop emotional permanence about you for the first time. And once that happens, you become undeletable. This is why avoidants often say things when they come back that sound almost mystical. I couldn't stop thinking about you. You were on my mind every single day. I don't know why, but I just couldn't shake you. What they're describing is not obsession. It's the birth of an emotional connection they were incapable of forming while you were present. And they're describing it in awe because for someone who has spent their whole life keeping people at a manageable psychological distance, the discovery that someone has managed to stay inside their heart without their permission is genuinely disorienting. It changes their understanding of themselves. It changes their understanding of you. And it changes what they believe is possible. So when they finally reach out, and I want you to hear me clearly, they will reach out. Will you even recognize the person on the other side of that message? Because the avoidant who comes back is not the same avoidant who left. And how you handle the moment of their return is going to determine everything that happens next. Not just for them, for you, for your worth, for your growth, for every future relationship you'll ever build. So let's talk about what the return actually looks like, what it really means, and what to do when it finally arrives. The return almost never comes the way you imagine it. Most people, in their most heartbroken moments, fantasize about a dramatic reunion, the tearful confession at the front door, the pouring rain apology, the grand gesture. But avoidants, even at their most cracked open, are still avoidants. Their reach will not be dramatic. It will be careful, testing, almost casual. It might come as a simple message. Hey, saw something that reminded me of you. Hope you're doing well. I know it's been a while, but I've been thinking about you. Something small enough that they can retreat if you push back. Something soft enough that they can pretend it wasn't a big deal if you don't respond. But make no mistake, beneath that casual surface is an ocean of feeling they finally could not contain. Some avoidants take a bolder route. They send the paragraph, the one they've been rehearsing in their head for weeks. The one where they finally use words like, I was wrong, I miss you, I've been thinking about everything. If you receive one of these, understand what you're holding in your hands. For an avoidant to write those words and actually hit send, an enormous psychological wall had to fall. This is not a light gesture. This is a person who has been terrified of vulnerability their entire adult life, doing the single scariest thing their nervous system knows how to do. And they're doing it because the alternative, staying silent and losing you forever, has finally become more painful than the risk of being vulnerable. But here is what you have to understand. Their reaching out does not mean the work is done. It means the work is just beginning. And this is where most people get hurt a second time. They see the avoidant return. They interpret it as proof of transformation. And they fling the doors of their heart wide open before they've even asked the essential question. Which is this? Are they coming back because they miss you? Or are they coming back because they've done the work to actually love you the way you deserve? There is a massive difference between these two things. And you need to know how to tell them apart. An avoidant who misses you but hasn't done the work will come back with intensity but not with substance. They'll want to see you immediately. They'll want to skip past the difficult conversations. They'll want to jump back into what you had without acknowledging what broke it. Their language will center on their feelings, their longing, their regret, which is meaningful but not sufficient. Because feelings are the beginning of change, not the proof of it. An avoidant who has actually begun the work of change will show up differently. They will not just express feelings, they will express awareness. They'll be able to name specific patterns they engaged in. They'll be able to identify specific moments where they hurt you. They'll be able to talk about themselves with a level of honesty that would have been impossible during the relationship. They won't demand immediate reunion. They'll ask for the chance to rebuild trust slowly. They'll understand that what they broke cannot be repaired with a single conversation, and they will show, not just tell, that they are becoming someone capable of the intimacy they used to run from. So when the moment comes, and it will come, I want you to slow down. Do not rush. Do not throw open the doors just because they finally knocked. Sit with the situation. Feel what your body is telling you. Ask yourself the questions that matter. Have they addressed the specific pain they cause? Have they demonstrated real self-reflection? Are they willing to move at the pace of your healing, not the pace of their fear of losing you? Because an avoidant coming back is a beginning. Whether it becomes something beautiful depends entirely on whether they can hold themselves accountable for the wound, not just the loss. And here is the deepest truth I want to leave you with. The most important thing about this entire journey is not whether they come back. The most important thing is who you have become while they were gone. Because the woman or the man sitting there right now, aching, wondering, feeling every doubt, is being forged in this moment into someone unrecognizable. Every day you did not text them, you built self-respect. Every night you sat with your loneliness instead of running from it, you built emotional strength. Every time you chose to keep growing instead of collapsing back into who you were with them, you built a life that no longer depends on their return to feel worthwhile. And that person, the one being built right now in the fire of this silence, is the person who has the power to say yes or no when the moment arrives, not from desperation, from wholeness. Because the real revelation is not that the avoidant will come back and beg. They will. The psychology almost guarantees it. The real revelation is that by the time they do, you may have already discovered something more valuable than their return. You may have discovered that the love you were trying to earn from them is a love you are now capable of giving to yourself. And once you know that, once you feel that in your bones, the choice of what to do with their return becomes clear. Because you will no longer be reaching for someone to complete you. You will be standing in your own wholeness, deciding whether to let someone walk beside you. And that is the moment your entire life changes. Not because they came back, but because you never needed them to.